How many of you have ever played kickball when you were a kid? Do you remember waiting to be picked? The anticipation? Imagine if your whole life revolved around waiting to be picked. That's what it's like to be an animal at a shelter. Sometimes I wonder, what if I had never adopted my cats? Would someone else have welcomed them into their home, or would they just be left behind? 6.5 million animals every year are left in U.S. shelters. Adoption is our responsibility. This photo of dogs waiting in shelters creates a virtual experience. It is poetic, public, and purposive. The first thing I will talk about is how it creates a virtual experience and it's poetic. Then I will talk about the components of it being public and purposive. This photo creates a virtual experience and it's poetic because it creates an emotive response of empathy. Empathy is when we feel other people's feelings as our own. Now let's look at this photo as if it were an ad. There's one study of different ad campaign performance, and it showed that 31% of emotional ads had success, but only 16% of rational ads had success. Why is that? There is a positive correlation between empathy and action. Now, when we see this photo, doesn't it make you feel like a time that you were left out and you were alone? And that makes you want to help. One way you can help is through adoption. Now that we have seen how this photo creates a virtual experience and it's poetic and evokes empathy, let's look at how it is public. This photo addresses everyone who looks at it. In this picture, there are rows of cages. Let's look at specifics. There are 3.3 million dogs in U.S. shelters, but only less than half are adopted each year. And that means over 670,000 dogs are euthanized per year. That death is a reflection of our community and our pet ownership ideals. 23% of dogs in the U.S. come from shelters, but 34% are bought through breeders. If we as a community encourage going to shelters and not buying from breeders, this can decrease the euthanasia cases. Now that this photo has shown that it has a virtual experience and it's poetic and dedicated to the public, let's look at how it is purposive. When we see an animal in a cage, it makes us think that adoption is important. 2 million dogs per year come from puppy mills, and there's only one federal law, which is the Animal Welfare Act of 1966, that regulates this treatment. This is further regulated by the state. Let's look at some statistics. 16 out of 50 states have no required permit for breeders, 13 out of 50 have no written standards of care, and 18 out of 50 have no regular inspections. This has such a high potential of mistreatment of animals. For an example, in March of 2018, 75 Great Danes were rescued from an unlisted dog breeder. They had sores on their body, ear infections, and their environment was lined with their own feces. Now, I understand that this is not all mills, and it's just one example, but this photo asks us to step up and prevent these instances. Overall, this photo creates a virtual experience. It is poetic and invokes empathy. It is public and addresses the community. It is purposive and encourages adoption. Next time, when you're considering adding a furry friend to your family, remember that adoption decreases the amount of animals waiting alone, decreases the cases of euthanasia, and decreases the instances of mistreatment in breeding mills. Thank you. Dodgeball, kickball.
She doesn't even know what she's doing. Oh my gosh.
I look kind of cute though.
Play dodge kick?
Have you ever had a ball?
Sit down. Just sit down, Dad. Sit down here. Come sit down and listen. And don't say anything. Or just don't drink too much. You have to drive.
I'm not ready.
He's not ready.
Yeah, he is.